Former Czech foreign minister and opposition figure Karl Schwarzenberg has said, according to Radio Liberty, that Russia is waging, quote, an open war against Ukraine. Schwarzenberg was commenting on statements made by the Czech president Miloš Zeman, who tried to downplay Russia's involvement in the military conflict in East Ukraine by saying that the Eastern European nation is in the midst of a, quote, civil war. Schwarzenberg has been vocal in his support for Ukraine. In October, he called on the Czech government to provide Ukraine with lethal weapons. Radio Liberty also reports that he went on to compare the situation in Ukraine with the events in Austria prior to World War II. He said, quote, before World War II, Austrians largely thought that they were Germans, but after Hitler invaded them, they came to believe that they were independent Austrians. The same thing has happened in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has created a truly national Ukrainian state. The conflict in East Ukraine between Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed insurgents has been raging since March. It has claimed more than 4,700 lives, according to the latest UN figures.
Keeping NATO strong could not be more important. There is an arc of crisis and instability that stretches from east to south, and it poses a threat to our populations and our territory. We see challenges on a scale we have not seen for over 2 decades, and they will endure for years to come. We need to face this fact. To the east, there is Russia. We have tried long and hard to build a partnership with Russia in a way that respects Russia's security concerns and based on international rules and norms. And as Jan mentioned, in fact, my very first speech as new Secretary General of NATO 5 years ago was about developing a stronger partnership between NATO and Russia. Regrettably, Russia has rejected our efforts to engage. Instead, Russia considers NATO and the West more broadly as an adversary. Russia has trampled all the rules and commitments that have kept peace in Europe and beyond since the end of the Cold War. The pattern is clear. From Moldova to Georgia, and now in Ukraine, Russia has used economic pressure and military actions to use instability, to manufacture conflicts, and to diminish the independence of its neighbors.
The crisis in Ukraine. In response to that situation, the president is sending more U.S. Air Force units and aircraft to the Baltics, and the U.S. will contribute troops to a NATO rapid response force in Eastern Europe. We have more now from Mark Phillips.
There's been a lot of saber rattling in Eastern Europe lately. NATO exercises with troops from all over the alliance, staged deliberately in Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, countries on the front line with Russia. Now NATO says it's going to make this kind of deployment more permanent with its new rapid reaction force, about 4,000 strong, a spearhead they call it. The spear clearly pointed at Vladimir Putin and his Eastern European ambitions, which were apparently not satisfied when he annexed Crimea earlier this year. The West was caught flat-footed then.
What they're deciding on now is something that can respond much more quickly.
Alex Nichol of the International Institute of Strategic Studies.
If a situation arises where an ally comes under threat, perhaps in the Baltic, that NATO is able to respond very quickly at 48 hours notice and take some action which might deter any further action by another country.
Might's a big word.
Well, I think that, yes.
Proposed a peace plan for Ukraine, but one that would leave pro-Moscow rebels in control of the areas they now hold. Putin has the strategic advantage in this standoff with NATO. He doesn't have to get agreement from 28 countries before acting. Putin's more nimble than they can be.
He's absolutely able to be more nimble, and of course that's not going to go away.
NATO's new rapid response force is designed to be nimble, but it is still a conventional military response to a Russian leader who's been using unconventional means, and who, Scott, has had NATO scrambling to come up with a strategy.
Well, the U.S.-led military exercise is to begin in western Ukraine amid continued fighting between government forces and pro-Russian militias. The military exercises, dubbed Rapid Trident 14, involve 1,300 troops from 15 countries. The 11-day drills will take place near the western city of Yavoriv and will not involve live firing. The Pentagon says the exercises will increase interoperability among Ukraine and the participating nations. The drills come as fighting between government forces and pro-Russian militias continues around Donetsk. Civilian casualties are reported in heavy shelling on Sunday. Kiev has accused pro-Russian militias of threatening the truce by intensifying attacks against government positions.
Ukrainian Defense Minister Valery Helete has said that NATO weapons are en route to Ukraine after agreements about their delivery were reached at the NATO summit in Wales earlier this month. Officials in Kiev had agreed with a number of NATO member countries on the direct supply of arms to Ukraine. A senior aide to President Petro Poroshenko said such agreements were reached with 5 NATO member states, but 4 of the 5 swiftly denied any such deal. We were reaching agreements in closed talks, without media, about those things, about those weapons we currently need. But please understand me. I have no right to disclose any specific country we reached that agreement with. But the fact is that those weapons are already on their way to us. That's absolutely true. I can officially tell you. Western governments have accused Russia of destabilizing its neighbor by annexing Crimea and sending Russian troops to back insurgents in 2 eastern regions. Russian President Vladimir Putin has denied Russian troops are helping the insurgents, as have top Russian officials.
Ukraine and the United States have begun naval exercises on the Black Sea near the Ukrainian port of Odessa. The maneuvers, given the official name Sea Breeze, will be focused on international cooperation to ensure safe navigation in a crisis-ridden area. Exercises are held under the NATO Partnership for Peace program, with several other countries also participating. Nearly 300 American personnel joined the drills. Among the Ukrainian vessels were ships which were captured by Russian forces during the annexation of Crimea in March. 5 Ukrainian ships and support vessels, along with 2 border patrol boats, joined 4 NATO warships, including the U.S. Navy frigate Ross. The program takes place amid the backdrop of war with Russia, while the Ukrainian government is seeking military support from the international community to modernize Ukraine's military in the face of aggression from the Kremlin.
And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal, and I will turn thee back, and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Gomer and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared, and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land, thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. Thus saith the Lord God. It shall also come to pass, that at the same time shall things come into thy mind, and thou shalt think an evil thought, and thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates, to take a spoil and to take a prey. Turn thine hand upon the desolate places that are now inhabited, and upon the people that are gathered out of the nations, which have gotten cattle and goods, that dwell in the midst of the land. Sheba and Dedan, and the merchants of Tarshish with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? Therefore, Son of Man, prophesy, and say unto Gog, Thus saith the Lord God, In that day, when my people of Israel dwelleth safely, shalt thou not know it? And thou shalt come from thy place out of the north parts, thou and many people with thee, all of them riding upon horses, a great company and a mighty army. And thou shalt come up against my people of Israel as a cloud to cover the land. It shall be in the latter days, that I will bring thee against my land, that the heathen may know me, when I shall be sanctified in thee, O Gog, before their eyes. Thus saith the Lord God, Art thou he of whom I have spoken in old times by my servants the prophets of Israel, which prophesied in those days many years that I would bring thee against them? And it shall come to pass at the same time, when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face, for in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea and the fowls of the heaven and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shake at my presence. And the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him and upon his bands and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord.